Navel Laser. This is the quirk of Yuga Aoyama from Class 1A. It allows him to shoot an extremely powerful, glittering laser from his belly button. The lasers can be made strong enough to break through concrete. He is also able to use the recoil from the beam to propel himself around, effectively making him far more mobile. Along with being able to charge up his laser for a powerful supernova attack, extensive training and some dire situations enable Aoyama to unlock special hidden abilities within his quirk. The technique Naval Buffet Laser utilizes the laser redirecting ability of his suit and fires multiple lasers from his knees, elbows, and belly button simultaneously. However, this technique is extremely strenuous for Aoyama. He is also able to use Naval Saber, a technique that condenses his lasers into a short-ranged blade attached to his belly button. Though his quirk is extremely powerful due to the fact it was given to him by All for One and doesn't suit well with his body, using it too much gives him a horrible stomachache. Tail. This is the Mashirao Ojiro's quirk, and as much like the name implies, gives the user a large prehensile tail. The tail itself is extremely powerful, being shown to be able to dent metal and launch the user into the air with a simple tap on the ground. The strength of the tail is even more devastating when paired with Ojiro's mastery of martial arts. He's able to combine both to unleash powerful acrobatic melee attacks. Dupli-Arms. This quirk is owned by Mezzo Shoji. It grants the user a set of arm-like tentacles adjacent to their arms that can transform into duplicates of their other body parts. Mezzo is able to reproduce any of his body parts, including ears, eyes, mouth, hands, and so on, with said parts taking form through pods located at the tip of each of his tentacles. The other body parts reproduced by the tentacles are far stronger than the originals. For example, the eyes have a wider field of vision, and the ears have more sensitive hearing. The combination of the effectiveness of all the senses makes this quirk extremely good for surveillance, even being able to detect invisible people. The strength of the duplicated arms also makes it have a lot of offensive and defensive capabilities as well. Invisibility. This quirk renders Toru Hagakure invisible. This quirk only renders the user invisible and does not work on accessories or clothing, making it so they must be naked to effectively use the quirk. In addition to invisibility, the quirk is also able to refract light from the sun, create a bright flash that temporarily blinds opponents. This technique, when trained, also allows the user to refract light-based attacks, changing the direction and spreading it in all directions. However, it should be noted that this is a mutant quirk, meaning that the ability is to be invisible, not to turn invisible. Invisibility, much like Ojiro's tail, is a consistent part of the user's body and cannot be turned off or on at will. However, if the user refracts excessive light, it can cause them to become visible for a period of time. Acid. This quirk allows the user to secrete acid from their skin. The user is also able to control the strength of the acid and its viscosity to create a variety of effects. Mina Ashiro has been shown to be able to use this ability to shoot out acid bullets in a barrage as well as to solve things with touch. However, the true strength of this quirk lies in its utility. Ashiro is able to use the acid to melt the ground beneath her and slide on the viscous substance to increase her mobility. She can coat herself with viscose acid, creating a layer of corrosive slime that melts incoming attacks. It's called Acid Man, and she can also create a wall of acid that can block numerous attacks. The overuse of her quirk makes her dehydrated extremely quickly, and her skin eventually loses its resistance to her acid. Before continuing our journey, I would like to ask you if you liked the video to like and subscribe. As you can see, our channel is still small, and any help on your side will help us to keep producing content. Electrification. This quirk allows Denki Kaminari to store up and discharge electricity. However, an excessive discharge leads to the user short-circuiting their brain, leaving them idiotic and vulnerable for an hour. Thanks to this quirk, Kaminari is able to release the electricity absorbed directly by touching enemies, releasing it into the surrounding area to do area damage or, thanks to his equipment, directly hit a single target by shooting a bolt of lightning in a line from his fingers. Earphone Jack. This is a mutant-type quirk of Kyoka Jiro, manifest as long, extendable earlobes with earphone jacks at the ends. These jacks give the user acute hearing while also allowing them to project sounds through them. Jiro has been shown to be able to use this quirk in tandem with the speakers on her suit in a variety of ways. For example, counterbalance allows her to shoot out sound waves from the speakers on the shins of her suit. These waves render any sound-based power useless. She's also able to use her earlobes to channel sound into the special amplifiers on her forearm, slamming them into the ground, and releasing sound waves so powerful they have effects similar to a miniature earthquake. She can also use this technique directly on her opponents by throwing very high power sound waves at them. She also can create a wall of sound that blocks her enemies and restricts their movement. Explosion. This is the Bakugo's quirk. It allows him to excrete nitroglycerin like sweat from his hands that he can detonate at will. While the offensive potential of this quirk is clear, he is also able to use the explosions to propel himself, giving him higher mobility as well, as he used the concussive force of the explosions as a shield. He is also able to store sweat in the grenade-like gauntlets on his forearm, removing the pin for a devastating attack. The most powerful technique of Bakugo is Howitzer Impact. This is an aerial assault in which Bakugo uses propulsion from his explosion to rotate in the air, creating a downward-facing vortex that sucks oxygen into its center. This oxygen serves as fuel, supercharging the explosion that Bakugo releases upon contact with the target. In addition to these, Bakugo has been shown to have a wide arsenal of moves by using his equipment. He can use an armor-piercing shot to concentrate an explosion in a single little target, or can shoot little explosions like a machine gun. Frog. This quirk, much like the name implies, gives Tsuyu Asui the characteristics of a frog. She's able to extend her tongue up to 20 meters. The tongue is also extremely strong, being able to easily lift a person. This quirk also gives the user enhanced swimming ability as well as the ability to hop long distances like a frog. The user also gains the ability to stick to walls, which, paired with the ability to camouflage, makes this quirk extremely good for reconnaissance. There's also the added ability to secrete mucus that has varying effects including itching, masking the user's scent, and paralyzing opponents. And though we thankfully never saw this power displayed, the user is also able to eject and wash their stomach. Hardening. The user of this quirk, Eijiro Kirishima, is able to harden their body, giving it a sturdy, rock-like appearance. Even within the story, the simplicity of this quirk was a major plot point. It doesn't do anything except give the user enhanced strength and make them hard. Get your mind out of the gutter. This is not what you're thinking. The ultimate form of this quirk, despite its simplicity, is actually rather powerful. Known as Unbreakable, this form makes the user's entire body extremely durable, changing their appearance to that of a monster. Though this form only lasts around 40 seconds, for its duration, the user is practically immune to all physical attacks. Tape. This quirk allows Hantasero to shoot tape out of their elbows. I really feel Horikoshi made them come out of his elbows so no one would realize that he basically gave web slinging to one of the most unimportant characters in the story. Much like the aforementioned Marvel counterpart, tape allows the user to swing from surfaces and bind the user's enemies. That's it. This is all about this quirk. One for all. This is Midoriya's quirk, and likely one of the most powerful quirks in the whole story. It was initially presented as a quirk that allowed users to transfer their physical strength to another person. The compounding effect made it so that soon the users of this quirk were unreasonably strong and fast. We saw this firsthand with All Might, who was so strong he had to hold himself back to not destroy skyscrapers from the wind pressure of his punches. The stockpile strength could be restricted both in intensity and location. This allowed Midoriya to conquer his initial inability to harness the quirk's full power. Despite the quirk being broken enough as is, we later find that it also has the ability to transfer the quirks of the previous users to the current user as well as their souls. This meant that Midoriya now had access to a whole host of quirks. I'll try to run through them quickly here. Gear Shift allows a user to change the speed and velocity of anything they touch, including themselves. Fajin allows the user to create and store energy in a muscle group by performing repetitive movements with them that he can release for a boost in speed and power. We saw Deku use his power to buff his one-for-all strength to create a faux 100% attack. This attack, while being just as powerful as normal 100% attack, is much safer on the user's body, though at the cost of needing to charge up. Danger Sense functions much like a spidey sense, enabling Midoriya to detect danger in his vicinity. Black Whip allows the users to create whips made up of black energy. They can use it to pull themselves, grapple others, and restrict their motion. In a dire situation, we see Deku use Black Whip to pull his muscles and tendons when he should have otherwise been incapacitated, allowing him to move past his limit. Smokescreen, much like the name implies, allows Midoriya to create a large smoke screen around himself. While he is not immune to the smoke, Danger Sense allows him to still evade attacks and survive while practically blinded. Float allows the user to, well, float. While it may not sound like much, paired with the propulsion ability of One for All Strength and the maneuverability of Black Whip, it makes the user flying and highly mobile. A whole host of quirks and someone as resourceful as Midoriya have birthed numerous techniques, but frankly, that might be for another video. Engine. This quirk gives the user engines in their calves that make them much faster and have much more kicking power. It is used by Ida Tenya and his brother Tensei. This quirk has been passed down through his family since at least his grandfather's time. The engines in his leg have multiple gears which Ida can shift through. Ida is also able to use Recipro Burst, which gives him the ability to momentarily increase his speed greatly at the cost of burning out his engines. Through training and removing and regrowing his mufflers, he was able to gain Recipro Turbo, which increased both the speed and time active from 10 seconds to 10 minutes. In a similar vein, he was able to gain the move Maximum Speed, which allows him to charge up and run at speeds even faster. Anivoice. This quirk allows Koji Koda to communicate and command animals. He is able to command them to attack targets in mass and also use them to gather information. The user is able to use attacks like Hitchcock Birds to call a flock of birds to distract and attack opponents. He is also able to do similar with bugs in the move Bug Out. The major limitations of this ability is that the animal must be able to hear the user's voice to receive the command, and it only works on animals, not animal-like creatures. Dark Shadow. Dark Shadow is the quirk of Fumigake Tokoyami. It allows him to create a conscious bird made out of darkness. If you've been watching anime long enough to have watched Blue Dragon, and man is that a throwback, it's basically that. The bird is able to speak, and both its personality and power depend on the level of darkness present both in the environment and in the user's mind. When there is little darkness, Dark Shadow is timid and at its weakest. Though weak compared to its most powerful form, it is still a formidable tool in battle, being both extremely fast and extremely durable. It is able to claw opponents and move quite a distance away from its users. When summoned in complete darkness, at its strongest, it takes the form of a gigantic shadow, strong enough to cut through multiple full-grown trees and uproot them with ease. Though this form is extremely powerful, it is also extremely difficult to control, with a tendency to go berserk and attack indiscriminately. This form, the fitting name of Ragnarok, because fighting it really feels like the end of the world. Even in its more docile form, Dark Shadow has a lot of utility. Tokoyami is able to ride it, giving himself the ability to fly. He's also able to don Dark Shadow like a suit of armor. This form is geared for a melee-focused fighting style, using Dark Shadow to manifest claws and fists that attack the opponent as well as enabling flight. Pop Off. This quirk allows Minoru Mineta to create round balls from the top of their heads that stick to anything except the user. The techniques of this quirk largely revolve around snaring the opponents, where the user runs past the opponent throwing their sticky objects as they go by snaring them in place. This quirk can also be used defensively. Great Buckler is a technique in which the user of this quirk sticks these balls into a shield, effectively blocking any attack and trapping it in the shield. The major drawbacks of this quirk are its lack of offensive potential and the fact that excessive plucking of balls damages the user, causing them to bleed. Zero Gravity. This quirk is owned by Ochako Uraraka and allows her to float any solid object, living or non-living. They can also cancel this effect by touching the fingertips of both their hands together. This quirk allows them to easily move debris, making them extremely valuable in search and rescue, as well as very good for restraining opponents, as leaving most people suspended in midair renders them useless in a fight. The user is also able to use this ability offensively with moves like Meteor Storm, where the user releases debris that they had floated, causing something akin to a meteor shower. The user is also able to use the floated debris as blunt force weapons to attack opponents. During a battle, Uraraka undergoes an awakening that allows her ability to spread from one object to the other without her having to touch them as long as they are in contact with each other. This awakening also removed the major weakness of her quirk, a 3-ton weight limit. Suger Rush. This quirk allows the user to greatly boost their strength for 3 minutes whenever they consume 10 grams of sugar. As the user uses this quirk, their brain function slowly decreases and they get drowsy as a side effect, similar to a sugar crash. Half cold, half hot. This quirk belongs to Shoto Todoroki and is a combination of his mother's ice quirk and his father's Endeavor's fire quirk. His right side is able to generate ice, while his fire side is able to generate fire. Excessive use of one side of his quirk results in a change in his body temperature that could prove fatal. Upon accepting his father's quirk as his own and working to master it, he is able to circulate both the hot and cold blood in his system, maintaining a stable body heat. This condition enables him to unleash far more powerful attacks without the fear of backlash from his body temperature while merging his fire and ice into one ability. He is able to create cold flames that neutralize the power of any flame user. Todoroki is also able to use his ice and fire abilities separately to great effectiveness. Creation. This quirk allows its user, Momo, to create any non-living object from her exposed skin. She's able to do this converting the molecular structure of the fat in her body to any material she understands. Creation of objects requires Momo to have enough skin exposed for the object to escape her body, enough fat for her to form this object, and an extensive knowledge of the materials she is forming. Despite the versatility and power of this quirk, it has both extreme physical and mental barriers to mastery.